alter. Please note that at your last hearing on March 20th, 2024, you heard and closed public comment and continue the matter to today by a vote of 7-0.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Rich Sucre here on behalf of Jonathan Vimmer, Planning Department staff. The item before you is a request for a major permit to alter for the project at 2 New Montgomery Street, historically known as the Palace Hotel. As proposed, the project seeks to replace the neon tubing of the 2 rooftop signs with an LED product intended to simulate the quality of light that actually neon provides. Other work is confined to associated rooftop mechanical equipment to allow for this conversion. No changes to the 1909 building or the landmark garden court are proposed. The general base or framing of the rooftop sign appears to date to 1954, at which time they were first installed and read Sheraton Palace. This was altered in 1995 to the current iteration of the signs, which simply reads the Palace. We are not certain whether the existing tubing dates to 1954 or 95, as the letters for the words "the" could have possibly been shifted over from the Sheraton lettering. This was a meaningful and notable change regardless, but staff does not dispute the current signs are character-defining features of the overall site, nor their iconic nature. I think there may be a bit of confusion on the proposal status that could be helpful to address up front. While a permit has been filed, no permit to perform this work has yet been issued or approved by any relevant city agency. The department has discretion to bring any project subject to Articles 10 and 11 to this commission, and the entirety of the project is before you today. Further, staff are not calling for a specific position. Proposals are submitted for review, and then staff assess them based on the relevant provisions of the planning code and provide appropriate recommendations. In this case, these relevant positions are as outlined in Article 11 and the Secretary of Interior standards. The specifics of this case are important. The subject signs have been previously meaningfully altered. The neon tubing has deteriorated and has been non-functional for approximately 5 years. And there will be no changes to the signs other than in its materiality and method of illumination. The proposed LED product is designed with the intent to mimic the quality of warmth and light that neon provides, and when elevated atop a 9-story structure, the distinction when viewed from the street becomes increasingly lessened. As noted in your packets, staff do not believe this sets any precedent for future neon replacement. We maintain the belief that at this time, even the best of simulated LED products is insufficient for the replacement of neon at the ground or lower levels, and in this case, it comes down to all the specific parameters noted in our analysis. Within the last several days, the department has received approximately an additional 220 letters of opposition, all of which call for the retention of the neon lettering and express doubt regarding LED from a visual sustainability and functional perspective. No letters in support have been received. The department position is as detailed above and in your packets, and with that, staff recommends approval with conditions. This concludes my presentation, and the project sponsor is here. We're happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Project sponsors, you have 3 minutes if you need it. There will be public comment, sir. Okay? We afford the project sponsor 3 minutes.
Okay. I'll go kind of briefly just to let the hotel speak as well. I think I'm Charlie Stroud with Aero Sign Company. I've been with Aero about 35 years, kind of overseeing design, engineering, estimating. And we're very familiar with neon. We do neon restorations, including the Britex, the Lipo. I did the Coca-Cola original billboard, not the original, but the second one. It was rebuilt for neon. But we also do a lot of LED, and for certain applications, I just think LED is a much better fit, especially when it has to be serviced, when service is such an important aspect. LED, when done correctly, is a much more reliable method of illumination. And we've done substitutions on certain projects, it makes sense, and other ones it doesn't. And I think this is an ideal project because of just the nature of being roof mounted and the access to service the display.
Hi, I'm James Tyler. I'm the Director of Engineering for the Palace Hotel. I just want to share with you my experience with it. I've worked in San Francisco for 30 years. as a building engineer, station engineer 39 for about 10 years. I've been in hospitality for 24 years, and I've dealt with a lot of neon signs. And as stated before, when they're lower, they're great, but when it's higher, it really represents a safety issue for our hotel. We have to put scaffolding up, we have to get contractors in, and everything else, and it's just, it's not very convenient. The LEDs will allow the sign to stay lit longer, because if we lose a sign, if we lose a neon letter, sometimes it takes up to 2 or 3 months to get it replaced. When I was working at down the street at a different hotel before I joined the Palace Hotel, their signage was down for, I'd say, 6 months. I'd call the chief because I thought I was a little embarrassed about it. And he'd tell me that, it's access. It depends on getting on the contractor's schedule, getting the scaffolding up, weather access. And sometimes if we lose a letter, it could be out for 3, 4 months. And that really impacts the signage and and the hotel. With the LEDs, we wouldn't have that problem. And that's really one of our goals. And one of my biggest part of my job is safety for my team, and that's accessing that signage also. So that's why we have to hire it out, and we can't take care of it in-house. So that.
Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Boland. I'm the manager of the Palace. And first of all, thank you for your time. And just a few things. The Palace, the owners of the Palace have been there since 1973. They did a major renovation and have proven that they respect the historical side of the building. We also own the Palace Garage, which we have the famous Palace Garage neon signs. We have no intention of replacing them with LED. When they go out, we replace them with neon. And right now, as you know, throughout the city, we're suffering. We've had a rough several years.
Thank you, sir. That is your time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time and effort.
Okay, very good. We should open up public comment. Members of the public, this is your opportunity to address the commission on this item. You will each receive 1 minute.
My name is Woody LaBounty. I'm the president and CEO of San Francisco Heritage. Apologies for speaking out. I was surprised that we were reopening this for presentation from the project sponsor and for planning to give its opinion. So I wasn't prepared that public comment would be reopened, and I think we could have had a lot more neon supporters here if we had known that public comment was going to be reopened. San Francisco Heritage very much supports the retention of neon and not the approval of this project. As I said last meeting, this is very similar to how you would assess a historic property and the materiality of the historic fabric. So please deny this project.
Good afternoon, Commission. My name is Al Barna. I'm co-founder of San Francisco Neon, which is a neon preservation organization here in San Francisco. And I would just like to address the fact that the safety concerns that were brought up and maintenance concerns won't be all that different from neon in the first place. You're still going to have to access that sign periodically and maybe even more frequently, depending on how you feel about LED products and their longevity, just as much as you do for neon. You're going to have to get up there on a scaffold or create some kind of a fall protection system. And I actually have a background in occupational health and safety. After 33 years, I recently retired, and I know that all this work can be done safely. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Gary Parks. I also spoke last week in favor of neon. Now, this is not to say that the folks from AeroSign don't have some good arguments, but from personal observation of neon versus LED out there in the wild, as it were, I have seen so many LED signs, even of good quality, fail frequently. And it just seems to be, it happens all the time. There's several in Hayward that are constantly doing it. One is recently installed, and a week later, several letters were out, and it hadn't even rained. So, you know, I'm still for neon in this case, and if you want to know about maintenance, I work on the Grand Lake Theater rooftop sign. That's light bulbs, and we do incorporate LED bulbs in that now. But so rooftop signs can be challenging, and I understand that. But I keep seeing these LED signs going out, and part of it is it's plastic, and the almighty sun rots plastic.
Thank you,
There's
sir.
no
That is your
exceptions.
sign.
Thank you very much.
Hello, my name's Gene. I'm a working photographer here in San Francisco, and I would like to support the keeping the neon more as a historical preservation thing. The building, the Palace, is a beautiful, beautiful hotel. It's like iconic to our city, and to have that sign switched out from neon, I think would not be the right move. The way that neon light emits is different, and I know that they talked about the difference from the heights, but people are seeing this thing from all over. You'll see drone shots. Maybe we get more movies filmed here. There's always iconic shots of people on the roofs near neon signs, and that light is just so beautiful. And I think that, you know, removing that and replacing it with LED would really detract from a beautiful, iconic building that we have here in the city. So I would like to say that. Thank you.
Okay, last call for public comment on this item. Seeing none, public comment is closed, and this matter is now before you, commissioners.
Commissioners? Commissioner Baldo.
I have a couple of questions, probably for the planning department to begin with. What, as I understand it, this sign has been out for 6 years. Is there a standard of maintenance that the city requires of signs before they lose their permitted authority to be there, and requirement for maintenance and things like that?
Article 10 does have a maintenance requirement that's associated with landmarking. However, our enforcement on the maintenance requirement in Article 10 is complaint driven, and we have not received complaints from members of the public with regard to that. So our enforcement staff sadly are limited in their capacity. We have a total of 5 for the whole city. And generally, we work on and prioritize any enforcement projects that we have relative to city landmarks when we receive those kind of complaints.
So if someone were to make a complaint, like that the neon was out on this sign, what would then be the process, or what would the owner of the sign be required to do?
So we would send a notice of complaint to the property owner, and basically then start working with them. In most cases, our enforcement process is not meant to be punitive. We work with basically people to get them to come into compliance with the city's rules and regulations. And so in this case, for example, on a landmark property, we have maintenance requirements. And so what we would do is inspect the property, ensure, and work with them to come up with a treatment plan. In this instance, it was the owner themselves that came in with the permits to kind of revive the sign and bring it back.
Thank you.
Commissioner Vergara.
This question is for Mr. Sucre. As I understand it, a few years ago when Ghirardelli Square sign was replaced, that was a case of incandescent bulbs being replaced by LED. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. We worked on that project back in 2017.
Okay.
And did a similar kind of replacement of, to switch to LED.
All right. And I think Aero Sign Company did the work then as well?
I think that's correct.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Campbell.
I mean, I echo the sentiment of all of the support for neon. I think it's impossible to compete. And I think it would be my preference too to see it replace in kind. And I'm surprised to hear that ownership hasn't listed costs as an issue. My assumption was that the reason the sign hadn't been replaced to date is because of the cost of replacing neon. Perfect is the enemy of good, so I would hate to throw away a good solution for no solution. So I think what would be worse is to not see that sign lit at all. So I guess I'd like to understand is if we say, no, we require neon, are we not getting a lit sign in the foreseeable future?
That's a very good question. As you know, in 2020 with COVID, we closed down for 1.5 years. And A lot of people have forgotten COVID since, but this year our revenues are still down about 30% and our profitability is down. We're basically breaking even right now, slightly over that. So the cost of replacing the neon sign, we've looked at it, is the cost difference between replacing the neon sign. There's a big cost compared to LED. We believe the LED will last a lot longer. Of course, will get replaced or get maintained. But on top of it is if one sign goes out, which has been happening, it's not just all the letters go out. The L goes out and it looks like pal, ass, you know, it doesn't, it takes time to replace that, and that's expensive. And every time one letter goes out, you have to put the scaffolding up, and you have telecom sites up there as well, which has to be switched off. So it just takes time. So you do that, next month another letter goes out. So it's very expensive. So what we would, and it's not your top priority with costs, you know. So that's, yes. So we were told that the commission, and probably rightly so, the commission, your focus is more on the historical side, not on the financial side, but there is a financial benefit to moving to LED, but more there's the convenience and long-term viability of the sign would, on the cost side, there is benefits to it. Thank you.
I have another question. If you were to proceed with a neon sign, does all of the neon tubing, the glass tubing, need to be replaced and then redone, or can the existing tubing be reused as it is? I guess where I'm going with this is, if we were to approve the LED, could we go back to neon one day, or would it be starting all over? Versus you'd have to start all over anyway if you were to proceed with neon.
Yes, if you were to go with LED and then to go back, you would be starting over and redoing the neon. Talking to the technicians, you know, a fair amount, they said at least a third of the neon that was there was either broken or in not usable condition. The housings were kind of a variety of ceramic and glass. Some were broken. Just in overall, just many years of just service. And a lot of the wiring is obviously just older wiring that would have to be replaced as well.
Thank you.
Commissioner Wright.
Yeah, I have a technical question. I think this would be probably for Arrow. And also, I'm curious to hear the experience of the others in the audience that work in the field, and maybe planning has also touched on this in their research. But it's my understanding that LED bulbs and LED fixtures have suffer kind of from a condition that is lumen depreciation, where the sign, or where the light eventually becomes dimmer and dimmer. And so I'm curious if in this type of application, if that would be similar with other LEDs, and I suspect that it is.
There is depreciation over, the way they rate LEDs is, if you hear 50,000 hours, it's not like bulbs where 50,000 hours, half of the bulbs would be out. At 50,000 hours, they rate it as to 70% brightness, where it would be noticeable at that point. That's how they come up with the kind of the benchmark for putting a number to it. But this particular product is rated for 50,000 hours. It is an RGB, so it has all three LEDs, so there's a bit of a variable where it could be longer, just depending on how it is illuminated. The reds typically are rated for more like 100,000 hours, but the white would be closer to 50,000 hours.
And so what you're saying is that this sign will eventually become dimmer over time, and at the point where it becomes noticeably dim, and it's gradual, so it might not be as noticeable, but there will be a time when people look at the sign and it's like, oh, well, that's not as bright as it was in that photo, or that's not as bright as I remembered it then. And so the repair for that would be replacing again with LED tubing again.
Yeah, but at 50,000 hours, I mean, you're talking, you know, depending on how many hours of the day that it's on, you know, talking 10 to 15 years, just depending on the, like I say, the amount of hours. We've had, a good example is, you know, like I brought up in the previous meeting, is the Metreon. The target there has been up well over 10 years, as the W down in LA, as has, I think a perfect example of a white is the California Hotel in Oakland, and that's been up, I want to say about 10 years, and it's definitely not noticeable where you would pick up that it's dimmer at that point.
I was going to say, if you do an average of 8 hours a day for the whole year, it takes.
Excuse me?
If you do an average of the lights being on for 8 hours a day for the whole year, it'd take over 40 years for that degrading of the light. It'd be up there about 40 years.
And I'm curious if any of the others in the audience that have experience in this field have anything to say about lumen depreciation or wear of these. It's fine if you don't, but just curious. I'm in my head thinking very much about the character of the sign and the character of the lighting and the quality of the lighting, and it's interesting to me also that planning staff in their assessment already believes that the quality and character of this lighting would not be appropriate for a sign that were lower. So that does make me think about the long-term character of and quality of this.
If I could, one other factor, even with neon, there is, especially with white, you can get kind of some mercury staining over time in the glass where it settles, and we have, you know, often we have to replace tubing, or you can even see it in some of the photos that have been featured of the previous illumination of the sign, where you can start to see some staining in the glass. So it's not totally unique with neon versus LED. There's issues with the long-term lighting with neon as well.
And then in terms of the character and quality of the light, is the LED replacement product matched to the same color temperature that you would get, and what visual impacts are there or differences?
Well, there are many choices with LED as far as color temperature. If you're using white LEDs, there's anywhere from 2,700 to 5,000 or 6,000 available in color temperature. And there's also the RGB LED, which is what we're proposing here, which has the ability to make different shades of white, not the same necessarily as the temperatures that you get with the pure whites. But you have a lot of options with colors, and it's just getting better all the time. They're getting longer lasting and improved quality just as technology evolves.
And what is the color temperature of a neon white LED?
It varies.
White.
Similar with LED, neon has really warm down to about 2,700 up to 7,000. Most, I believe the existing was about in that 4,500 range, which is kind of a medium warm white.
Thank you.
I just have a few comments, and I'm glad commissioners are going to be, commenting a little bit more on this. This building is a landmark, and according to the Secretary's standards, we should retain historic fabric where we can. It's sort of a unique technology, and something that obviously a lot of people are attached to. That's not to say that new technology is not good. I think where I'd like to understand, and I think the commissioners have, brought up a wide range of comments. I'm going to bring up something different. So I'm hearing that the maintenance for the neon is problematic in that the transformers are likely next to the lettering because the distance probably affects the way that it illuminates. And I'm wondering whether there could be better access created for that, such as a permanent scaffold that sits where the transformers are, and or consideration of, maybe there is an advance to how to get the power to the lettering while having the transformer on the roof level so that you have easier access. And I think the 50,000 hour number, I just did a quick calculation. I think it was 8 hours a day for years. It would be 17 years. I'm not sure what would be the life of neon. So I'd like to ask about the transformers and the life of neon, if you could address those.
I think the transformers, our experience with power supplies, speaking with LEDs, we're getting much longer life with power supplies. I think the warranty is 7 years on the current power supplies that we use. That is the big advantage, or a big advantage is we would house all of the power supplies at the roof level because it's low voltage wiring.
That's for the
LED, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Because it's low voltage going from the tubing down to the electrical enclosure. Transformers are, it's funny, it seems like the older transformers always have worked better. They do, some transformers last a long time. Our experience is we get longer life out of.
This is for the neon or the?
For neon. I'm sorry, when I speak of transformers, I'm talking about neon.
Oh, got it, okay.
And so, especially the older ones, we can get very long life, but the newer transformers, and it's been this way for years, they're starting to improve a little bit, but we definitely have more service calls with transformers than we do with power supplies. Power supplies have just gotten extremely reliable. I brought up the example of the Target sign. That's a huge sign with multiple power supplies. And I have not had one service call in over 10 years on that. Similar with the W, I had one service call with just very large signs. They've really improved the technology with power supplies.
Is it possible for neon to have the transformer, if there's some sort of permanent scaffold that has the transformer on that scaffold? Is it possible to do that?
I think it would be possible to possibly put a platform behind the letters. They're all located inside the letters. It's somewhat problematic to have them remote to run high voltage, over a distance. And that's why they're typically located very close to the neon. You could build, a platform off of the back potentially where you could access, but you would still, most of the problem with neon, the tubes itself is typically at the electrode where it goes into the housing. Over time, the moisture, the soot, and the bugs that are attracted in there will fill up and clog the weep holes that are in the housing, and that's where you'll get either arcing or a short inside of there, and the electrode will fail or the glass will crack, or those are typical service calls for neon, and then along with the transformers. It's definitely our experience that the LEDs that we're using now, especially because they have gotten so much better, are superior from a service standpoint.
If you were doing the neon, would you have to make new tubing and not reuse what's there currently?
I would do it as a complete restoration. That's how we've done several of these jobs. If we try to piecemeal it, it would be a much better, more reliable product to replace it with the same product.
And it would not be possible, so currently each of the letters has its own transformer, is that the case?
Multiple transformers,
Multiple transformers,
yes.
So each letter has multiple tubes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and typically neon, they're in that kind of 8 to 10 foot range units.
Okay.
So.
And then as far as the lettering, it's a coated lettering, right? It's got some sort of porcelain coating.
Yeah, lettering it's a beautiful product. It's porcelain enamel. It's definitely the best
On
type of
steel?
sign. On steel.
On steel.
And there is a lot of, as you can see in the photos, there's a lot of rust stains, because what happens over time, the edges of the housing holes get chipped, or just the edges of the material of the porcelain is chipped, and you'll get, or where the tube supports have rusted, you'll see rust dripping down.
And
so we were
so-
going to clean that.
Oh, okay, clean it.
With, we'll do the best we can. Sometimes the stains can be really difficult to get out, but there's a process for.
And as far as patching, you would patch it in kind with steel, right? Not aluminum?
I would patch it with aluminum, but we'll use a coating on the aluminum for the dissimilar metals. It'll be a thin aluminum patch that will be mounted with like a VHB tape. And even the track, when you work on a porcelain sign, you never want to drill it, it'll crack it. So all of the track that we install, it'll be an aluminum track with a VHB tape on the back of it. So it could be removed. It's strong enough to hold the product, but could be removed in the VHB over time.
Okay, I will go on to the next commissioner. Commissioner Vergara?
Did I understand that the original sign, and I don't remember this, but that said Sheridan Palace, the letters were in red? Is that what
I'm sure that was the same. Because it's porcelain, it appears to be the original porcelain. It's the same color.
So they were always that white
Yes.
color? Okay, thank you.
That's unless they replace the letters, because it's that porcelain just lasts forever. It works so well.
Thank you.
Commissioner Baldoff?
I appreciate everyone taking time with this, because I actually think it's a really complicated question, because I think we're talking about an art form in the neon as an art form. It's a technology as well, and it is the spirit of a time and a place. And so I think what I struggle with is that now LED lights, and I assume based on your product that we could, for Pride, we could have multicolored letters up there, and we could do all these things which are actually very artful, but are they actually the original art of the sign that was there? And I think the sign, the tubing was red in my memory, not the letters. It was a red neon, is that correct?
That I can't speak to. I don't know.
Just for historical purposes, not argument or debate. In the 1980s, I lived in the Oakland Hills, and one of the fun things that I could see with my binoculars was Sheraton Palace. It was white.
It was white.
It was white.
Thank you. In any event, I struggle because I think that the irony of neon for me is that when certain letters go out, that's actually part of the story. Letters flickering is part of the story. It's what is in all sorts of film noir movies. It is a whole way of doing things, and that's why I appreciate the neon aficionados here. I also appreciate the incredible challenge the hotel business has been in San Francisco over the last bunch of years. And so I actually personally don't know where I want to vote on this. I'm just saying I feel very conflicted. I would love if we were to say we're going to go with the LED approach, that somehow the hotel, which has done amazing jobs memorializing its history in all sorts of vitrines that I've enjoyed over the years, could actually talk about the history of this sign, maybe work with some of the groups, maybe preserve some of the tubing if it's all going to get trashed anyway, which I feel very sad about. That there's some way of creating the win-win here. I feel very uncomfortable with this, to be quite honest.
Commissioner Campbell?
Sorry. I give you the commitment now that I don't know if you've been in the hotel, but the one good thing out of COVID, we created a museum in the hotel for the hotel. Now, I can give a commitment now that we will, I think it's a great idea, we will do a section in regards to because we spent many hours on this sign. I think it deserves a section inside the museum. We'll give that commitment to get it done by the end of the year. I will also say to Commissioner Wright's concern is we have our ownership, the family who owns the hotel, they have a capital plan and a capital cycle plan. So part of that is if the sign gets updated this year, that it'll go into the capital plan to replace the LED lights. Normally they do it like the elevators and all that before the end of the life. So the plan would be between 10 and 15 years that we'd be back to upgrade the signage. So it's not like we'll wait until the lights stop working. So thank you.
I'm sorry, sir. Commissioner Campbell?
I'm in full support of getting these signs illuminated and activated. I think it's really, they're sad right now, just sitting there without lights. And I'm hearing neon not as an option for this ownership group. And while I echo the sentiment of wanting to see them neon, I don't want to see them not lit. I don't want to see this sign unlit. So I think the 9-story location works in our favor. I think the conditions of this approval, I'm comfortable with those, which is seeing a mock-up of the lights, and then also seeing them in situ, I believe, once they're installed before approving. So I'm in support of this.
Commissioner Wright?
Yes, thank you. It was interesting to me, the comment, and was timely because I actually had the question, but that one of the comments was that well-maintained, or if the neon were fully rehabilitated, that would be more stable than the current neon as the way it is now, and in a kind of a piecemeal repair fashion. And so I get that some of that is the electrodes, the wiring, the tubes, the housings, etc. And so I think there could also be, if you're thinking about durability, the case for just rehabbing the neon. But that's what's on my mind.
Thank you. So, how I feel about it is that this is one of the most iconic historic buildings in San Francisco. It's on Market Street, and our calling here is to preserve historic elements, and a lot of times we do have to, replace things, and sometimes it's not in kind. But in those cases, usually it's something that's less significant, or a non-contributing feature, or a lower feature. And in this case, I think we're talking about a sign that is very iconic, very prominent. And the Secretary of the Interior Standards talks about replacing in kind. And so I think I feel, strongly that neon should be used for this sign. That being said, I think there could be improvements to providing better maintenance support, creating a structure to have the ability to maintain it better. And I appreciate Commissioner Wright's comment that if all the neon were being redone, that we would see more years out of it than piecemeal. So I appreciate that. And those are my comments. Are there any motions?
I move to approve with the conditions contained in the executive summary.
I second.
There's nothing further, Commissioners. There is a motion that has been seconded to approve with conditions. On that motion, Commissioner Baldoff,
No.
Commissioner Campbell,
Yes.
Commissioner Vergara,
Yes.
Commissioner Wright,
No.
Commission Chair Nagaswaran.
No.
That motion fails 2-3, with Commissioners Baldoff, Wright, and Nagaswaran voting against. Is there an alternate motion, such as a continuance until the full all members of the commission are present to vote, for instance?
Sorry, what was that, Jonas? I didn't
Is
quite...
there an alternate motion to disapprove or to continue when possibly all members of the commission are present?
I move to disapprove the proposal.
Is there a second?
Second. I can't second.
Yes, you can.
Okay, second.
On that motion to disapprove, Commissioner Baldoff,
Yes.
Commissioner Campbell,
No.
Commissioner Vergara,
No.
Commissioner Wright,
Yes.
and Commission Chair Nagaswaran.
Yes.
That motion fails 3-2, with Commissioners Campbell and Vergara voting against. Is there an alternate motion, such as a
fail?
continuance, for example?
Wait,
Commissioners, just as a reminder, you have to have 4 commissioners to approve or disapprove a
Yes,
motion.
you need 4 affirmative votes to take an action,
Right.
with
okay.
exception to procedural
That's-
matters, such as a continuance.
I'll
Is
move to
there another
continue
motion?
until we have hopefully a full complement at our next meeting.
So, just
Second.
looking at your advance calendar, Commissioners, currently it appears as though May 1st may be your first hearing with all commissioners present, at least that have advised me as such. So, I believe Commissioner Vergara made the motion, and Commissioner Campbell, you seconded a continue.
I did. I seconded it.
Thank you. Commissioner Nagaswaran seconded the continuance to May 1st. On that motion to continue to May 1st, Commissioner Baldoff,
Aye.
Commissioner Campbell,
Yes.
Commissioner Vergara,
Yes.
Commissioner Wright,
Yes.
Commission Chair Nagaswaran.
Yes.
So moved, Commissioners. That motion passes unanimously 5-0. We'll see you again May 1st. Commissioners, that will place us on item.
Jonas, can I ask a question on that? To clarify, and this is kind of in kind of a follow-up to Mr. LaBounty's comment about whether or not there will be public comment allowed on that item, and whether or not people should come. Or...
Yes. Even though we have heard this matter twice now and have closed public comment twice, whenever an item is put on the agenda for action, we must provide for public comment, albeit reduced. So our practice is to provide the sponsor with 3 minutes and members of the public with 1 minute. Again, this has been heard twice now, so the chair can actually reduce that time further if they wish. But that's been our practice.
Thank you.
Can I also ask a follow-up question on the procedure and this kind of thing? Will staff be, I think there are a number of questions regarding, for instance, the cost of a neon installation versus the LED installation, that it would be good to have a sort of staff position on these things that I would help our process here.
Yeah, and I think we didn't have staff that were part of the project on this
I think I would like to ask for a follow-up staff presentation on May 1st.
Sure. So, commissioners, just to provide a little insight, in general, we don't typically ask for or weigh in on items related to cost. However, if you so desire that information, we can ask this project sponsor to provide that information at your next hearing. But in general, the department staff does not usually take an opinion, nor ask for